Good morning. This is Animal on Control. Welcome to the voice chat. These calls are pre-recording for uploading to social media, and by joining a call, you're consenting to being recorded. Anyone wishing to join a call should email me at animaloncontrol@gmail.com, and I will reply with instructions. Today's topics: suing nutters, neighborhood harmony, self-defense recap, NextDog Mutt mania, miscellany, including dogs in prison, and Chef de Mutt. Joining me is Joe from Animal Abuse in Hungary and Mr. Johnson. What's up, guys?
Hey, how you doing?
All
Hey,
right.
how's it going?
All right, Mr. J, you mentioned you had some way to recap, and correct me if you're wrong. You essentially, for practical purposes, lost your job for expressing a dislike of dogs. And one thing I'd wanted to comment on that is people need to understand that, this is a fairly high stakes game, and they'll find ways to get you, right? Often people worry about physical violence, but they can do things like, say, attack your economic interests. And it's really low behavior. I mean, it's terrible, really. Particularly what happened to you. I mean, you lost your job, man. I mean, it's terrible. These people, they're the scum of the earth, literally. But in any case, you'd mentioned to me earlier you had some updates on the situation. So please share.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Once again, I'm back in this space, standing up for all of us. And basically, what had happened was I was working in a hostile work environment, and when they kept approaching me in that way, I just decided to, when I was placed on administrative leaves on some BS, I just told HR that I was going to cite a hostile work environment. Well, once I put that snowflake on top of the avalanche, it went all downhill from there. So they tried to say that I was hostile and all this other stuff, which I never was. And then they tried to get me on a fictitious other claim. And so while I was on for 2 weeks leave, I was already seeking employment from another company because obviously I was unhappy there. And then they subsequently fired me for a bunch of BS. Well, listening to some of your voice chats that I had missed due to dealing with the depression of this, I'm not going to lie, we all deal with issues as adults, especially when it comes to supporting yourself and buying things that you need and want in life and having those privileges to yourself. And it started to weigh in. I have to fix my car. There's a lot of things that I have to do. So when all that started to roll in on, my mother jumped on my ass and she was like, if it had been me, I'd burn that whole place down for what the abuse that she went through.
Yep.
And my mom is 76 years old. She's still got a fire in her gut. She's not going to give up. She fights to this day. So that lit me up. And then, like I said, listening to your calls and then Joe's situation. And I'm like, I'm faced in a situation where I'm backing myself in a corner because I'm an advocate of this cause and a crusader. And if I don't speak up and do something that I'm saying I'm doing too, I'm just running my mouth. I'm a dog person. I'm barking. No, I'm not. So I'm starting putting actions in motion. IHD is having a situation too, where he's having problems with his employer, and it all seems to be coming from the same thing of dog people energy. So I'm taking a stand, and I've retained litigation, and I'm going to go after them. And one of the things is going to be for stress because of this issue.
Yeah.
You don't have a right to ride me every day because of your love of dogs. I don't care. I'm here to work. I'm not here to care about Rover. The people are leaving work. People are leaving work early because their dogs are sick. Excuse me? Like, I don't have that. Like, if I have the bubbles, that's the only time I'm going home. Because I work in a kitchen, I don't want to get anybody else sick. But any other time, if my family members, unless they are dying, I have to be in that kitchen providing a service. You don't get to go home because your dog has the shits. I don't
Yep.
care. Let the dog sit outside and shit. We have work to do.
Yeah. Well, it's an expression of the dog's first mentality, because the dog's, at least the perceived best interest of the dog, take precedence over everything, because when you're working, I mean, well, you've got an obligation to yourself. You've got an obligation to coworkers, because if somebody takes off, and there's legit reasons to take off, but the other folks got to fill in. It's more work for everybody else, typically.
Oh
And
no, in the kitchen, it is more work for everyone else.
yep.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And just a real quick interjection here. People don't understand what's up with the kitchens. And I've been a chef for years now, recently. The problem is people always call off. So people are always calling off. So the slack is always on you. So don't
Yep.
give me that shit. You don't come in, you have to leave. We're all fucked.
Yep. Yeah, particularly if it's last minute. I mean, it's one thing if it's a pre-planned vacation, but to just take off, just, oh yeah, Rover's sick. Well, how do you even know if that's the case? Like, did they get a
Thank you.
note from the veterinarian or something? Or
Thank
anybody
you.
can
But
claim.
you have to have a note. You have to have a note if you have to come in sick. If we're not in work for a multiple amount of days, I know Joe can contest. You have to come in with a doctor's note.
Yep.
So why do you get to get off for a dog?
Well,
Because it's a
because
dog.
dogs.
It's the
It's
new
dogs
cigarette.
first. Yeah, well, it's
It's
dogs
the new
first.
cigarette. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the new cigarette. We get to bring it everywhere. No, I don't want to smell it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to taste it.
Ew. So the case. So you have representation, and you're filing a case for, I guess, well, what are all the complaints? I mean, you have like, say you mentioned emotional distress, perhaps improper termination,
Well,
harassment.
it's going to be two different. So the first one's going to be WC, and then that's going to be physical, mental, psychological, all that stuff I've suffered from the various attacks daily from that crap.
Jeez.
The other fictitious shit that they came up with, the slander, the defamation of character, the wrongful termination, the underpaying, the overworking, that's going to be the other part of the case. So they've already got a letter of representation this week. So I got a copy of that, and I'm most ecstatic. So I
Good.
know they're going to be getting another one soon, and I hope that they don't sleep well at night, because now I'm starting to get some sleep.
Yeah, I think it's always important for people to. It's the bullying that we're subject to from these people, from these dog cultists. It can be a very severe thing. I mean, I told you, I even, what I've encountered, my crazy ex-neighbor almost tackled me in my driveway.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to run through that story again. And the thing was, it was funny because one of the other neighbors had reported her dog to animal control, but the dog nutter thought that I did it. Right. She thought
Uh-huh.
that so it wasn't even me complaining about the dog that time. Yeah, I was
Oh, but
hooking up my
she assumed.
yeah, but she assumed it was, well, because I'd complained about the dog before, so I guess I was the most
Obviously, exactly.
likely culprit. I mean, they already knew I was a thought criminal. That's what they're doing. They're trying to punish us for, having impure thoughts or hate speech or whatever. But well, good. And even if all that stuff doesn't stick, I expect perhaps some of it will. So
Some of it
good.
will.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody keep their fingers crossed. Yeah, I hope it comes out good. Maybe privately we can share some more of the details. Like I'd mentioned earlier, you don't want to disclose anything really specific, but it might be, interesting to, follow the case. Lawsuits take a while. They take a lot out of you. But you know what? If you win, there's a lot of satisfaction there. You feel really good about yourself once you've run that gauntlet and gotten at least some of what you want. So good deal. I wanted to shift gears. Joe, you had shifting gears. You had a story to share. There was a follow up on your incident because your neighbor's dog tried to attack you, and you drop kicked the dog's head, and And report, the whole
I
thing was
wish.
reported to police. Fortunately, yeah, you're not currently being prosecuted for animal cruelty, so that's good. I wanted to
A
talk
little
some more.
curb stomp never hurt anyone.
Yeah. So any
Hey, can
case,
you guys hear me now?
yeah, now
Oh,
we hear you.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I had the
hello.
Hey,
button
hey,
on my
Sheepie.
headphones turned off, so.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, we were talking. Well, I want to follow up with you also, but I think it's Joe's turn. So let's. What's the latest on that situation?
Yeah, hello everybody. And now I'll try to keep it short. Actually, now the complaint is still being processed, but I mean that has been almost 3 weeks now. So I think in the course of the week I will actually call the police and just ask them what is taking so long, because it's a bit uncommon. So I don't know what they are doing. They're probably they have to send it to the next larger police station here, to the county capital, and it probably got stuck somewhere. But I mean that's beside the point anyway. So I'll have a look after that. But the best thing actually is that there is a development with other neighbors here. Now the story is that I didn't say that last time because it wasn't relevant. But the funny thing is that my girlfriend's parents actually live next to us, and they have a dog as well. And so before actually moving here, I already made it very, very clear that I do not want to have that dog in our apartment. I do not want to hear it. And we are definitely not going to take care of the dog when they go on holidays or anything. So I made it pretty clear that I want nothing to do with that dog, and they should. I don't want to hear the barking either. And they said, back then when we actually moved here, they said, yeah, well, of course, that's fine. I mean, not everybody has to like dogs, and it's our pet, so you don't have to, you don't have to be involved in that. And I thought everything would be fine, but as you can probably imagine with dog nutters, it's of course not fine. And in the end, the whole thing came back and bit me in the arse. So what happened actually was that the owner of the dog that attacked me, his wife actually called my girlfriend's mom, because they are acquainted, and yeah, they've known each other for quite a while. And the funny thing is that actually my girlfriend's parents were not even here. They were on vacation in Switzerland, which is, they were in a place 1,000 kilometers away. But they had to be informed. That's the kind of the village gossip. And so the wife of the dog's owner called my girlfriend's mom, and she was immediately complaining that she told her that this guy filed a complaint against her. And I have never even met her, that the wife of the dog owner. And she was talking to my girlfriend's mom and said, well, can you not convince them to actually drop the complaint? And then we got a WhatsApp message from my girlfriend's mom, and because she wasn't here, she was in Switzerland, so she had actually no idea what was going on. But she didn't even have the necessary decency to actually call us and ask us if everything is fine. She dropped us a WhatsApp message and told us that the dog was probably just the dog probably just wanted to pay us a visit, as if the dog would come over for a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah, he just
And
wanted to be friendly. They all
yeah,
do,
or just
until
want to
they
be
don't.
friendly with his teeth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she basically tried to order us, via a text message to drop to drop the complaint, and to, for the sake of harmonious neighborly relationships, we should just be nice and drop the whole thing, because we have to live here, and we should consider that yeah, this could deteriorate the good neighborly relationships.
Oh yeah.
And then,
But
I
being
mean,
bit
my
by a
girlfriend,
dog doesn't do that. That
yeah,
doesn't deteriorate
exactly.
the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it would
Exactly.
improve neighborhood harmony. Like if dog people were to stop turning their dogs loose to attack people, that would make things more harmonious.
Yeah,
But
Oh,
but
who would ever have that thought? Why
yeah,
would that be a thought?
well, there I am. I told you, well, like you guys, I'm a thought criminal. But that
Oh
kind
my.
of raises a bigger issue, and that kind of thing is very, very common because in their mindset, again, go back to the 10 Commandments. All dogs and all dog people are perfect.
yeah,
They're incapable of doing anything wrong. So in any bad outcome involving the dog or the owner, it's always somebody else's fault, typically the victim, or there's always something else to blame. So yeah, and what that means is in their mindset, the problem is never that, like I say, oh, it's irresponsible owners. They're lying when they say that. Not that that's wrong, but they're lying. What they mean is that the problem is never the dog or the owner. The problem are the people, are the victims, and or the people who complain about them. And I was going to maybe segue into some of that later, but that's what one way that's expressed as another expression of the double standard here is that they make it, well, in terms of public policy, it's made very difficult to complain. That was actually a contributor to that. Now I can't remember. It was the elderly man that was killed in Austin, Texas last year. But the public policy is to make it as difficult and onerous for victims and complainants as possible, and and addresses it or expresses itself in the social space also, right? Because your lady friend's parents are like, look, the dog running around attacking people isn't the problem. You are the problem for complaining about it. Right,
exactly.
which again logically makes no sense. No, the problem are not the complainants or the victims. The problem lies with the dogs and their owners. That's the problem. That's what needs to be addressed. Okay, that and addressing that is going to make things better. Shaming people or forcibly preventing them from complaining is not the solution. But anyway, I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you see this exact mindset with them as well. And the funny thing is now that she actually, she wrote us from Switzerland, so she wasn't even present, when the attack happened. She had no idea what was going on. But she immediately interfered, and she thought that she knows exactly what happened. And as you said, she doesn't even have to be here to know that the dog definitely is innocent. Yeah.
Yep.
So the dog is innocent. You don't even have to be present to evaluate that. And then my girlfriend actually got really, really pissed off about that, that her mom was actually not even siding with us, but siding with that dumb neighbor. And she just didn't reply to that WhatsApp message. And then they came back from Switzerland, her parents, and since then, her mom has this kind of campaign going against us, and she has teamed up with several other neighbors against us, and she's spreading all sorts of weird rumors now. And they're just not talking with us anymore. It's absolutely childish. And yeah, so we, in the end, we decided actually that we are just going to move away from here because it's just absolutely untenable. And my girlfriend is also she was very upset that her parents are just so disloyal. You just see that as we've seen with dog nuts many times, that they put the dogs even over their own family members.
Oh, absolutely. Well, not just the
That is
dog,
so wild.
not just the dogs themselves, but the other dog owners. They're also looking out for, because really, the complaint is against the dog owner because they let the dog run loose and behave dangerously. And, that's the root cause of the problem. But I think if anybody's in a situation like this, and it's very, very common, is that, and even, when I confronted my ex-neighbors across the street, when I sent them the desist letter, I put in there, I said, consider that this problem is entirely your fault. You're violating my rights. You're, out of compliance with written community codes. You're behaving, you are bullying and harassing people. You, dog owner, you're the problem. Okay, and obviously the dog is part of it, but of course, who brings these things into the neighborhood in the first place? So, yeah, I mean, if it ever comes up, I would, if you give them, if you figure if it justifies any kind of response, just say, look, they're the problem, not me. Okay.
I'm kind of
Well, may I
curious, like, what
interject real
was
quick?
your, oh, sorry.
Oh no, just real quick. You got to look at it from my point of view. Look at all the money you're gonna save.
Well, yes, that too. But the thing is, though, the dog person is the root cause of the problem. Sorry, go ahead, Sheepie.
Oh, I was just wondering, what was the relationship like between your girlfriend's parents and her, or your girlfriend's parents and both of you prior to this? Like, did this come, it sounds like this came as a total shock that they would choose the dog owning neighbor over you in this scenario. So what was the real, has this damaged like what was previously a pretty good relationship? Or I'm just kind of curious because it is weird that, I mean, it's not that weird in the context of dog nuttery that your family would side with someone else with the dog, but I'm just kind of curious on that. And I know from my experience in like with my family overseas, the neighborhood, like there is a lot of pressure to like maintain appearances and relationships. But I was just wondering kind of like if you could expand on the relationship prior to this as well.
Yeah, that's a good question actually. Now, the background is that my girlfriend had not lived here for several years, so she actually moved back here just a few months ago, and shortly after she moved back, I joined her. And at first her parents were really happy, because they have two other children, and one of them lives very far away, like abroad, and the other daughter, she's around 30 kilometers away. So at first they were really happy, that at least they have one daughter, right next to them, and they were happy that she's not living by herself because my girlfriend has type 1 diabetes, and so her parents were always a bit worried about her living by herself. So she should actually have somebody around, to just if something happens, that if she faints or something, that somebody is around actually to call an ambulance or if necessary, and so that she's not just going to have some incident by herself.
Really,
alone
I'm
in an
surprised. I'm
apartment.
surprised they didn't recommend a diabetic alert dog. I mean,
Yeah,
isn't that
well,
the best
I
way
could-
to address that problem?
I could tell you about that as well, a little story, but now the parents is, I mean, as when I moved here, I already made it very clear that I don't want to have anything with the dog, any business with the dog. But I mean, we got along pretty well. But the thing is that her mom is she's, yeah, I mean, I just have to be blunt about it. I mean, she's an extremely narcissistic and also disturbed person. She's kind of, she has sociopathic traits.
Oh, so basically just a typical dog person then.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
put it that way. Yeah, and it was always this kind of, we were getting along for 1 or 2 weeks, and then she came up with some nonsense that just to deliberately piss us off. And she just loves the drama. She loves to blow everything out of proportion and make a huge drama of it. And then we had to go through all the reconciliation, and we had to talk about it, and we had to resolve issues. And then we thought, okay, this is resolved now, and we can continue having a normal relationship. But then, 1 or 2 weeks later, she came with the next thing. And it was often actually something that was related to the stupid dog. So there were several occasions where she tried to push the dog on me. And I just flat out refused, and then she immediately took kind of a victimhood position, that I would be so mean and I would, why am I so intolerant and everything? And so she painted herself as the victim always. And so it had already deteriorated a little bit and it actually started to getting on my nerves. And we have previously to that incident, we already talked about actually moving away from here because, the nonsense just kept coming up. And so that was basically just, the straw that broke the camel's back. And
I see. Yeah.
yeah.
That's very
So-
interesting context. Yeah.
Yeah. Shifting gears. Yeah, Sheepie, how you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Gav, I know, but recap, I guess everybody's on, you have, actually, I was thinking about, because remember, we did a segment a while back, we were discussing a possible dog nutter Olympics. And I never lost, I guess the logistics of that are very challenging at this point, but I'm thinking that your neighbor, because like your nutter neighbor takes the cake, proverbially speaking. Talk about somebody who's dangerous. Oh, wait, right back to Joe real quick. What breed of dog is it in question? Your GF's mother's dog. What kind of dog?
Oh, that one. I'm actually not sure. It looks like something similar to a beagle, I think.
Okay,
I'm
so it's
not
like,
sure. I'm really bad with those,
so
but
it's,
it looks
it's
like
some
beagle.
kind of like, it's not like 150-pound XL
No,
with a
no.
bite history or anything. Yeah, that's
No,
it. What
at
it goes
least-
to is it like some of the most toxic dog people are these, mini mutt types, right? It's not just the pit nutters that are trying to foist their religion on everyone else. But back to Sheepie, yeah, your neighbor. And you talk about that, she's like a full-blown, like, criminal psychopath. Do you have any updates on that situation? I mean, has anything changed appreciably in the past? I know you were away for a while, but has anything changed appreciably in the past month or so regarding that?
No, it's pretty much the same. Like I said, she has a bunch of cages in the driveway now. I've been meaning to try to snap a picture. She cleaned some of them up, but the tall one is still just sitting in the middle of the driveway, and it does not look like a cage you would keep a dog in. I'm 99% sure she's not just like a dog hoarding nutter. Like she's also hoarding other animals, I think. I've been hearing the goat again. So I guess the goat is still living, fortunately. But I think she's actually keeping a goat in like a small cage in the backyard, and the dogs are, have the whole run of the entire yard, which I think is kind of inhumane to keep.
Yep.
First of all, goats are like a herd animal. They don't like being alone. They need to have like other goats around. So it just seems like a situation where she's like a crazy animal hoarder.
Yeah.
And I would like to report her to some kind of like animal welfare organization, not just because of the dogs, but she had a bunch of ducks, I told you before. Those just disappeared like overnight, seemingly. I don't know if
Probably that.
some
Probably.
other animal or dogs got to them,
Yep.
but yeah, she's got like an animal graveyard going over there at this point, probably.
Yeah, well, definitely, I guess she's definitely dogs first though, because the dogs get the run of the yard, but the goat is caged up. Yeah, I would definitely, report them to, I guess, because you don't have county animal control, but you could report them to like SPCA or HSUS. I mean, they should be held accountable. I mean, I know that, like, yeah, the whole system is rigged in their favor. Still, there's ways you can get them. Right? As like, Johnson pointed out, there's ways you can get to them, and I would recommend doing so, mainly because, yeah, that is inhumane, and I think that exposing those other animals, the goats or the ducks or whatever, to those murder mutts, that's like per se inhumane, right?
Yes.
It's like
Gotta be
throwing
like terrorized all the time, being
yeah,
surrounded
exactly.
by
It's like
these
throwing a
dogs.
goldfish into a tank full of piranhas. It's just, oh, because Joe, you and I had that conversation about how dog people are really different from other people who are into other animals. And that's the thing is, yeah, they treat the dogs inhumanely, and they treat whatever other animals they have inhumanely, often, due to their dog worship. Really is, it's terrible. I wanted to discuss that a bit more also, but so yeah, I would definitely, and again, it goes for anybody else who's listening. If you have a situation like that going on nearby, it's like, yeah, don't let them get away with it. If there's a way to get them, then hold them accountable. And maybe too, is if they get tired of getting in trouble all the time, maybe they'll move away, and that'll be very satisfying also.
Yeah, and from Joe's story, I wanted to maybe I don't think I've been on a call since I've gotten back to the US, so I was gonna tell you a few little anecdotes from my trip to the Middle East if you're interested.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah,
Ooh.
Go
yeah.
on.
So, the first thing I want to say is I was kind of surprised to find that since the last time I had been in the Middle East, a couple of my family actually has dogs now, like pets, which
Real.
really came as a shock. Yeah, that was not something I ever experienced growing up. And I think I've told you a little bit about my dad, how he raised us. Dogs were never ever to be inside the house. We briefly had like a pet dog in the backyard that we ended up just getting rid of because it was kind of like not enjoyable to have around. So I was surprised to find that a couple of my close family members, when I got to my dad's house, had dogs now. So it seems like some of the Western, I guess, view of pet dogs has spread um, a little bit. So, and just to give a little bit of context, over there, houses aren't spread out the way they are here. Like land is at a premium. So generally, people build more like family compounds in the villages. So, like, for example, my dad's house is actually the fourth floor of a building in which my other uncles live in. So, like, the first floor is one uncle, the second floor is another uncle, third floor
Hmm.
is another uncle and his family, and then my dad's was the top floor. So, one of my uncles' wife really sounds similar to Joe's girlfriend's mom in that she's kind of got a lot of narcissistic tendencies. She loves starting drama in the village, spreading rumors,
Hmm.
gossiping about people. And she has this little crusty white dog that she just carries around with her. Like when I first arrived, everyone was coming to visit, and she just like waltzed into the house with the dog, like not asking me if it was okay or if she could bring the dog. She just brought it in and set it on the floor and it started running around. And my cousin's wife was visiting, and they have two little boys that are like 3 and 5. And I hear suddenly like they're screaming and crying, the dog is barking. This little shit is just terrorizing these kids. And I came to find out later because I invited my cousin and his wife and kids over for coffee another day. And they were literally like, she walked in and was like, "Is that dog here?" And I was like, "No, no, no, don't worry." And she was like, "Good, because if I saw it, I was gonna like basically drop kick it out of the house. I would shoot it with a gun. Like, I hate that dog."
uh,
Which I thought was pretty funny.
yeah,
Um,
it's interesting how, yeah, a lot of the dog, well, it's a proselytizing religion, and we talked about before, it tends to supplant whatever cultural or social regimes are in place. Sorry, was there more to the story? Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, like, it turns out that dog has terrorized those kids multiple times, and very similar to Joe's situation, this woman, besides the dog, causes a lot of drama. She's always causing family members to fight with each other like, she'll just make up stories to make each them mad at each other. She actually called the police on my uncle's wife because my uncle married a Syrian woman, and this is not in Syria, so she's not a citizen. So she can be more she's kind of in a lower, I guess, category socially, so she can be, like, harassed more easily. It's sad, but that's kinda how it is. So she called the police on her for, like, picking grapes in the family, like, land, just a whole bunch of she's just always causing this insane, unnecessary drama. And, but the whole family's always like, "Well, she's one of the family, we have to keep the peace, just try to get along with her." So
Yeah.
it's kind of a bad situation because 'cause she's got this dog that's terrorizing the kids, she's causing drama all the time, and basically everyone's just like, "Well, we have to just put up with it." So it's just that was kind of an unfortunate development for my visit. And there was another day where, I was walking through my dad's house, and I opened the front door to the house, and there's, like, dog crap in front of my door.
Oh,
And I was like, "What the hell?" Like, and, I cleaned it up, and then my other uncle came to have coffee with me, and I told him I just found, like, this gross dog crap, like, in front of the door, and he rolled his eyes, and he was like, "Oh, yes, it's her dog, it does that, like, it's been doing that for years." Anyways, I was just really shocked and disappointed to find, because like I said, growing up with dogs, especially in the house, was not a thing that was common culturally. But then I will say that the Muslim areas still were very much dog free. I saw very few dogs throughout my entire visit. We went to the beach. There was no dogs running around on the beach. There were signs, no dogs allowed, basically. So, um, yeah, that's kind of just a quick rundown on the situation over there with the dogs that I saw.
Wow. May I interject real quick?
Let's see.
Yeah.
Notice all our situations in life. AU, Joe, Sheepie, welcome back and welcome back to the States,
Thanks.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I
Why
know.
is it always, and even my situation, why is our situation if we don't like dogs, they attack us like dogs? They bark us out of the area, they bully us out of the area, they do what they want to do. That needs to be really looked into really, really deeply one day because it always seems to be that way. If you don't like dogs, you are the devil for some reason. But if you don't like anything else, oh, that's cool.
yep. Yep.
Yeah, and there seems to be a strong correlation too with like the most narcissistic people because I would definitely
Bingo.
classify my uncle's wife that has this crusty white dog as having definite narcissistic tendencies and like sociopathic tendencies. I mean, she straight up just makes up gossip to cause drama. Like that's what she does for fun.
Yeah.
Joe's situation, they were out of the country and were all already on the side of the dog. You did something wrong, not the dog. Like, how do you
Yep.
know?
Yep. Well, it's not even, you don't even have to hate the dog. You can just say, look, I don't want Rover terrorizing the children. That's
I
it.
don't want to
Like
hear
it's
it
a
bark.
perfectly, but
Yeah.
even if you just say that, yeah, you're the spawn of Hitler and Satan all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it was funny because my cousin, one of my cousins who's the youngest daughter of that woman with the dog, there was a couple times where she rolled her eyes and was like, "Ugh, the dog, like that dog is like more important than I am." So it's just weird that this sort of treatment of a dog is like more important than your own children is like universal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, what's interesting is what she's doing, and it's sort of a tales from the doghouse type scenario. But like the other relatives say, oh well, she's family, so there's a lot of leeway there, and it is true. You give your own more consideration or more flexibility than you would some random person. But still, it seems like she's leveraging that social capital.
Whoa,
Right.
whoa, hold on,
I'm
hold on.
family
Not to
too.
interject.
Like,
Wait, listen to what was said. She is family. The dog. They're not talking about the woman. They're talking about the dog.
Well,
Because how could you say that? The dog is not a part of her. She is not the dog. They are two different
that's not
entities.
how they see it, though. But I think
Oh,
the point I
come
was trying
on.
to, well, the point, well, yeah, I mean, you're right, but
You
that's
know what I mean? Yeah,
yeah, I
exactly.
know what you mean. But the thing is that, well, you're talking about the dog owner herself, right? She's leveraging that, or she's burning up that social capital. But would she put, she obviously, see, it's all one-sided. She's not putting the interests of the family members first or giving that a priority, right?
It's
right.
terrorizing the children. Every
Yep.
time it sees them, it's bullying kids
Dude, it
for
was. It
no
every time.
reason.
Yes, when the kids were around, like she would often hold the dog and just like carry it around with her because it's like I said, it's one of these tiny little Pomeranian type dogs. So if it wasn't, she didn't put it down, she would just carry it around with her all the time. And if it even saw the kids, it would start going nuts like in her arms, like yapping and like it wanted to attack them. It was obviously like the kids made it want to attack them. Like, it was crazy, and she would just kinda laugh it off, and the wife of my cousin would be, like, giving it death glares, and the kids would be crying, and I actually preferred spending time with my cousin and his wife and their kids, because we were young together, like, knew each other as kids, they're my age, and we have more in common. Like, I wanted them to come over and have coffee and spend time with me, but they would wanna leave because she would show up with her dog, and it was rude of me to tell her to leave. The
Huh.
dog owner. Actually, there
Yeah.
was a
Well,
lot of drama, during my entire trip because of her.
what did
And
I
part
say?
of it was that dog,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go figure.
Go
Yeah, like,
figure.
she
Yeah.
was constantly inserting herself into, like, personal matters involving my dad's belongings, and, like, he left some guns behind, and I wanted to leave. I don't need any guns in Lebanon, like, I'm not there. I don't live there. So, I wanted to give one to my cousin, and I did. And she made a whole drama about that and started talking about him, and, like, it was just she was a nightmare basically my entire trip. So, and I just think it's very telling because she was really the main one that, like, is also a dog nutter. So I just felt like that was an interesting experience in line with all of our experiences.
That's crazy. But it's interesting because she expects the other. I think the point I was trying to make earlier was it seems that she expects, the other family members to give her a certain level of consideration because she's a family member, but
Yes,
it's not reciprocated. Right.
exactly.
She's putting, okay, I want all of you to put me first and perhaps the dog also, but I'm not going to put you first. I'm putting my dog interest first. And, like I say, like what goes around comes around. Okay. Like, okay, if the building were on fire, would she want you to rescue her or the dog?
Dang.
Think about that. I mean, there's a thought experiment that comes up a lot. Also, it's like, hey, if the dog is the only thing that matters, it's like, fine, I'll just let you. I'll rescue the dog and I'll let your ass just burn up. How does that sound?
Well, I don't know. From my point of view, I'd probably bring some salt and pepper and fire. I mean, I cook that dog.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, if it comes out, I
Seems
mean, don't
easier.
risk yourself. But if after it's put
Why
out,
not?
if it's like a good medium rare, yeah, I mean, it's a snack sized dog. You probably only get some hors d'oeuvres out of it. But yeah,
Hey, somebody will eat what I cook. I'll put it
yeah,
that way.
yeah, don't let it go to waste.
Oh man.
Hey, I wanted to delve into some topics. Shifting, actually, nearly not shifting gears too much. So, I want to start a share. And can you folks see? Actually, what's up with this Kyle person? I wanted to talk about Actually, this is something that came up, and IHD had done a couple of videos on it. And I think K-Nun and maybe some other folks had commented on it also. I wanted to make a few remarks about it. I guess for anybody who doesn't know, this dog here was brought to is a county jail, right? And as a quote, a comfort animal. And so the dog was placed in a cell or some kind of holding area with 4 men, and it was wandering around in there. It went up to one of them who, smacked the dog away, apparently inflicting some, not life altering, but some injury. And of course, now they're all over it. They're calling it an assault. They're saying it broke my heart when I saw the video, and he's being held on an assault charge. So now he's being, he was already being charged with some prior crimes. Now he's being charged with that also. I wanted to make a few remarks about this. I mean, this is another example of dog cultists trying to inject dogs into every aspect of public and private life. I find this wrong in many ways and in many levels, right? Now, one point a lot of people picked up on was that, you don't bring a dog, you should never bring a dog into any situation like that unless everybody consents. So I don't know, did all 4 of those men consent? Probably not. So you have that, and that's a big problem with all this. It's like, if you could sum it up, it's lack of consent. We all have dogs injected into our lives, whether we like it or not. It's a totalitarian mindset. So that's
correction real quick. They were in jail. They had no rights.
Well,
they wouldn't ask them. Yeah, no, but they wouldn't ask them for anything anyways. They would have just brought it in like they did.
Yeah, well, perhaps. Prisoners do have some rights. You can't just, use them for medical experiments, for example. But in any case, so they brought this in. But the other thing that's wrong here is that this is a kind of really, who's accountable for this? They could blame the person. This was the man that actually struck the dog, but it raises a question. What imbecile thought that bringing a pet into a situation like that was a good idea? Who thought that? They're just, anybody who thinks that that's a good idea is as dumb as dirt. And really, it should be something that everybody agrees with, because, you're talking about, a jail as a facility where we house at least potentially dangerous criminals. So you have an animal welfare issue here also, but at no point does anybody say it's like, okay, the sheriff could have said, well, okay, it seemed like a good idea in the abstract, but maybe this comfort dog scenario in jail is a bad idea. But no, they're going to, where does it say that? Okay, despite the assault, let me zoom in a little. Despite the assault, Josie is doing well and will continue to serve at the jail. Why can't I highlight this? Okay. So Josie is doing well and will continue to serve at the jail. It's like, how dumb are these people? This is a terrible idea. So their first day back on duty was Monday. So what they're doing is they're setting people up to fail here. As far as some people are going to say, well, it's a relatively innocuous mini mutt, but he could have a fatal dog allergy. Right? It's like, okay, yeah, agreed. It's not some XL bully that's going to rip both his arms off, but there's issues with that here. You could argue that they're being, forget about comfort animals, they could be used to torture the inmates. Also, these dogs bark. They
Wait a
bark.
minute, wait. What happened to the pit bulls for parolees and those pit bull programs? You notice those disappeared. Maybe they weren't so successful.
Yeah, well, that was interesting. Yeah, that was a reality show that ran. I think it was on Animal Planet for quite a while. Pit bulls, but that's the other thing. See, that was pro pit propaganda, and of course, even a reality shows have some staging and choreography, and anything they don't want shown is not going to be right.
I have
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I have a couple of comments about this just looking at the article on the screen. First of all, notice it says, we charge the defendant as harshly as possible under Michigan law. That always is the way they treat this. They're like, we're
Yep.
prosecuting this to the fullest extent. Like, the guy's already in jail. Like, leave him alone. Like,
Yeah.
is it not enough? Like, because, okay, so he hit a dog and now you're like going to tack on additional charges over this dog.
Yeah, it almost
And
seems
then,
like
8 years.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's almost incitement or entrapment or something like that. It's almost like, yeah, let's toss a brick of heroin into the cell, and then when the inevitable happens, you're like, oh yeah, we need to charge him with more crimes. Who, like, again, set that up to begin with? So,
right. And they're
right,
saying
it's like,
animal abuse will not be tolerated on my watch, and that
yeah,
includes inside the jail. Why is there a dog inside the jail? This shouldn't even
exactly.
be possible. How is
Yep,
animal abuse happening in a jail? Like,
yep.
you are taking the dog into the jail. And then it says they had to get the dog to an emergency vet to get an MRI. Who's paying for that? Like, that's not cheap. So
He's gonna
instead of
pay
like
for it.
dealing with the jail as it should be dealt with and managed and handled with human inmates or whatever, they're like now rushing this stupid dog to like an emergency vet to get an MRI and like charging an inmate who's already in jail with animal abuse because you brought an animal into the jail. It's
Yep.
just so absurd. It doesn't even seem like it could be real.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, yeah, there's an
And
element
they're
of
going to impose more charges even harsher in the future now because of this.
Yeah, well, it says here they're going to probably, he's looking at another potentially. Why isn't my, yeah, something weird is going. It says, yeah, killing,
They're
or
giving
did you
him 8
see
more
that?
years. They're doubling his sentence.
Yeah, they're giving him possibly he's facing another 4 to 10, but there's an element of incitement or entrapment here, I think. Because and I think, like I was saying, though, this is a bad idea regardless of how you look at it, whether whether it's perhaps you have prisoners' rights. And like I said, prisoners do have some rights, as they should, I think. There's an animal welfare issue also, right? Bringing any animal into an environment like this. I think you could argue that really it's not so, I mean, is there going to be any cross prosecution here? Like, are the idiots that enabled this problem, are they going to be held accountable or not? I think they should. I mean, if you're going to do anything, I think you should. Like, I would say, okay, what moron thought this was a good idea? And not only that, but they're continuing to, oops, what happened?
This strikes me almost like a form of like a humiliation ritual. Like from the
Yep,
video I saw, these guys are already like I think at least 4 of them in a room sleep like on mats on the floor. Like that's
Mhm.
already not bad enough. Like you're sleeping on a mat on the floor of a jail. And now
yep,
there's this little like shit eating dog running around leaving like hair on your like where you have to sleep. Like you're already in an uncomfortable situation. Like is the dog pooping and peeing on the floor? Like,
yep,
probably. You know what I mean? Like, the floor that you have to, like, sleep on already. It's just
yep,
so insane to me.
yep.
How is
Yeah.
this gonna bring them comfort? If I'm in a jail on a floor sleeping on a mat, the last me comfort is, like, a little dog, like, sniffing around my blanket.
Yep.
Well, also, I think that they're in a psych ward and they're coming down. All of them, they're in there on psych or on drugs. So, I mean, they're gonna flip out. I mean, I don't think that, like you said, it's a setup all the way across the board.
Yeah, it's a setup. Well, and they're using it to, generate sympathy for the dog. But even but even somebody who likes dogs should Well, that goes back to what Joe and I were talking about, how dog people are different from other people who are, advocates or interested in other species of pet, is that only a dog person would think this is a good idea. I don't know if you remember, kind of on topic, there was a TV show from 10 or 15 years ago called Prison Break. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but I'm going to spoil it a little bit. But in the show, well, the basic plot line was a man committed a bank robbery specifically for the purpose of going to prison so he could break his brother out of prison. That was the sort of the overarching, storyline. But one of the secondary characters in that was a man about, was an inmate about 60 or so who had a pet cat. And it wasn't like this kind of scenario was his personal pet. So the cat lived in his cell and he would carry it around with him. It didn't really interact with anybody else. You could argue maybe that's not the greatest thing either, but the cat didn't interact with anybody but him. But at one point, I remember the cat was killed by other inmates, I guess in retaliation for something. But, as somebody, actually, I like most animals, is like, really, that's not a fit environment for any animal, right? So even if you're as somebody who genuinely liked dogs would say, okay, this is a bad idea for that reason. But nobody's objecting to, like, nobody's really getting to we are, but in any of these articles, I read a bunch of them, right? It's all saying, it's like, oh, okay, we're going to keep pursuing this policy, this program. It's insane, right? It's stupid, right? Really all that something like this does, why is they inflate the egos of dog lovers.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen so many times like this claim that dogs are rehabilitative, like just by default almost, like all they have to do is exist and they're like rehabilitating people. Or
Right.
like AAiH has been covering recently this, I guess, study that was done where being around a dog like increases a child's oxytocin or something like that. Like it's just this bogus fake science that the only goal seems to be like more dogs everywhere. Like I think
Yep.
you've said this before and it was always funny, but like the answer to everything is like more dogs.
Yep.
Are you depressed? Dog. Are you not depressed? Dog. Are you in jail? Dog. Are you
Yeah. Is
like
your
in an
air
airport?
conditioner? Yeah.
Dog.
It's like, well, is your power out because of the hurricane? Get a dog,
Yeah.
right? You know?
It's almost like the answer could
Yeah.
never be dogs aren't the answer in this
Yep.
situation. Maybe it's
Oh yeah.
not a good idea to introduce a dog onto a jail where people are being held for like assault charges. Maybe we
Yeah.
shouldn't do that. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's even again just
Well,
for the animal welfare reason. Yeah, but I think the problem is that remember it's a totalitarian mindset. There's absolutely no deviation from the basic principle. So if you say, okay, here's a situation where maybe a dog isn't a good idea, well, now you've kind of that's like the first crack in the dam. You're thinking, okay, is that the only situation a dog isn't isn't required or isn't going to make things better? Then you kind of it makes people think of the whole thing, because again their thought process is it's axiomatic. Dogs make everything better, period. But then if you introduce some nuance, you say, okay, maybe like in a situation like this it isn't. Again, like I said, that's the first crack in the proverbial dam. So sorry, Johnson, you were going to say something.
oh, I was just gonna say that to me, I would have to say, although we have a lady in the room, I do apologize for this, but to me, dogs are like lactose. I'm intolerant to them. They just give me gas. There's no purpose for them. I don't get it. I don't. see how they're always constantly in check, like we've all been saying, and we're supposed to just accept that. Like, you go on a holiday to go visit your family, you go take a multiple hour flight, which I hate flying, Sheepy. That's respect. To go there and for that lady just to tramp all over you like that. Like, what the hell is that? And that's what they do. That's what I try to expose. That's what we try to point out. If we don't keep our voices out here, if we don't keep speaking up, if we don't keep saying no, then it's going to get worse.
Yep.
Yeah, I also want to say though, I did notice and I liked that we flew through Dubai on the way, and not a single dog on the flights, not a single like dog urination station at the Dubai airport. It was incredibly clean. We took Emirates. We flew with Emirates on the way there. Best flying experience ever. Amazing. Like even the economy seats were like almost as good as like business class on other airlines, and no
Mm.
one had any dogs on the flight. Like it was just, I don't know. If I could move to the Middle East, I probably would, because even with, the situation with my relative or whatever, in general, the society was so clean. There weren't dogs everywhere. There weren't dog parks everywhere. Like, especially in more like Islamic countries or areas, it was just very clean, very respectable. People take pride in their homes and hosting and being hospitable, which is something I notice a very different culture in the West, because like you don't go to a house in the Middle East and see like you're just a guest, the dog lives here, or like dogs on the couch, or like I don't know, there's just a different kind of element to treating guests and being hospitable that having a dog would be put a real damper on, I'll say. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like actually, if I had I haven't flown in probably over a dozen years, but if I was on a flight and there was a dog in the cabin, I'd probably just completely lose my shit. So, you know what? I'm just gonna stick. I'm just gonna. Well, the thing is, it would make us like, is it gonna start barking? And talk about dogs in places they don't belong. That's probably the worst. I don't know if you remember. I know Sheepie. I don't know if you were on the call, but it was early this year, maybe back in January. I covered a situation where it was a flight from, I forget, maybe it was like LA to Philadelphia, maybe, cross country flight, and probably at least a 5-6 hour flight. And a fake service dog got diarrhea. So it basically shit all over the inside of the cabin. It created a biohazard, and the plane had to perform an emergency landing. And I'm thinking that by itself, like if we had functioning authorities, dogs in airplane cabins would have been banned the next day, because this is totally unacceptable. Because the problem with that is it's even worse in a restaurant. At least in a restaurant, well, if you're offended by it, right? If a dog dumps a huge load of diarrhea next to you, you can just bail. I'm not saying it's okay, just less bad. Same thing. The dog can just be kicked out. But you're in an airplane, you're in a pressurized airplane cabin, 35,000 feet off the ground. That no live animal should be in that cabin. And it's like, like Chef would say, the assholes with disabilities. There should never, ever be a live animal in an airplane cabin, unless it's perhaps a specialized charter, right, that caters specifically to them. Like, I don't know if people know, but there's actually airlines that specialize in transporting horses, and they'll fly the horses. But no, they don't just bring the damn horse into the cabin with human passengers. It's a flight, with the exception of flight crew and the animal handlers. It's just the animals, right? But no, like these commercial airline flights, there should be no animals in the cabin at all. Even like I said, even just for animal welfare reasons. Like it's bad for the animal. There's no good, nothing good comes out of a situation like that. Yet we keep having situations like that.
I actually just Googled it, and apparently Emirates does not allow any pets in the cabin if you want to take a pet, you have to check it as like cargo,
Yep.
unless it's a falcon between like Dubai and Pakistan or something. Like you can take your falcon if you have one,
They'd
but
rather have that than a dog.
right. But you have to have your dog as
Sweet.
checked baggage on Emirates
Well, that's the
flights.
way it used to be. Is they put, the animals would be, crated and put in cargo. There's actually something else. I don't know if it was on the same. There was a situation back in the early 2000s where a pit bull was crated and in cargo, and it tore loose from the crate and attacked the plane's electronics. Right, they lost. I think the main airplane's main computer went down because Rover ate the CPU. Now they had backup, so the plane was able to land safely. But and then of course they banned pit bulls on those flights. But now they're back again. Like, oh, you can't discriminate against dogs by breed. That's intolerable bigotry. Of course, the only worst place for it is in the cabin. But yeah, it's just a disaster. And dog people need to accept the trade-offs. Like, if you have really any pet, you're going to have to, accept those trade-offs. You're not going to be able to do what you did before, at least not the same way you did it. You can't just go everywhere with the pet. If anything, it's just bad for the animal. But that's never the thought. Really, it's 99.9% of the time it's dog people. I mean, yeah, there's probably a falcon on a flight once every 5 years, but whatever. I could actually have a caged bird is probably way less bad because it's got its own environment, essentially. Crazy stuff.
There's also sorry, I was just gonna say real quick, there's also a list of dogs they will not accept to transport even as cargo, which
Yep.
is kind of interesting. And that includes any dog they classify as snub-nosed, and it includes Cocker Spaniels, Boston Terriers, Boxers, Brussels Griffon, all types of bulldogs, bull mastiffs, Cavalier, King Charles, Chow Chows, Doggo Argentine. There's like a huge list of dogs they won't even allow as cargo. And if any of the dogs are trying to be brought to the UAE, they won't be allowed. They're banned in the UAE, and that includes Mastiff type dogs, Rottweiler breeds, Doberman Pinschers, Presso Canario, basically any large breed are not allowed at all to even
Well,
like go to the
particularly, yeah,
UAE.
well, like I said, some of those really aggressive breeds, like, well, if you bring them into the cabin, they can attack passengers. I mean, how do they manage that? If a like a pit bull or an XL bully just pits out in an airplane, talk about a horror movie scenario. I mean, that's like the movie Alien or something, because you can't escape, like you're stuck. It's absolutely absurd that this stuff is allowed. I wanted to look up that. I know I vlogged about this before, but pit bull causes airline. Was it airline? What do we call that? Failure. I'll see what comes up. I don't know what to call this.
I think it's like a reroute, maybe. Did they
Yeah,
have
it's
to like
like
land somewhere else?
I think owner cries airline mistake. I know I vlogged about this. Oh, I think this was it. Yes, this is it. U.S. airline bans now. Of course, they're now allowed back on. See, this was 22 years ago when there was still like some elements of sanity in the system. American Airlines has banned aggressive dogs after a pit bull terrier escaped from his cage and shoot up electrical wires last month. Members of the crew of the 757 said they heard thumping coming from the cargo hold. I'm telling you, like I said, this is a horror movie scenario. You're like, yeah, you're at 35,000 feet, and you're like, what the hell is that, right? And found the plane's backup radio and some navigational equipment stopped working. When ground crews opened the cargo hold doors, they found the pit bull running free. Talk about like the movie Alien. It's like, okay, you go to open the cargo door and the pit bull, bam, jumps out and grabs somebody by the face. I can easily picture that. So the dog had damaged the hold's bulkhead and door and chewed through wires as thick as a garden hose. So officials of the airline said the damage caused by the dog grounded the plane for 9 days after repairs, but never placed the New York San Diego flight in danger. They said the ban would apply to all pit bulls, Rottweilers, and Dobermans, as well as any dog exhibiting aggressive behavior. The American Kennel Club called the ban an overreaction and said the airline should look at tougher standards from dog carriers rather than a ban on certain breeds. Well, they should just ban dogs, period. It's like, well, that's a way to be non-discriminatory. Like, we're not bigoted. Like, yeah, you can't bring pit bulls on flights. You can't bring chihuahuas on flights either, because they don't belong on the plane either.
But if the dog would have crashed the plane, then what would have happened? Nothing. A slap on the wrist to all dogs in the world. This is the egregious problems that we have.
Right, because that's a really good point, because these are a situation like this, or even the situation with the fake service dog with diarrhea. Like, it's what they call as a concept called moral luck, where somebody does the wrong thing and gets away with it just out of luck. Because, yeah, this could have been a lot worse. This could have caused the plane to crash, killing everybody on board, and perhaps even on the ground also. Like, what if it had crashed into a school or an apartment building? Right. And it's like,
but hold on. But if any one of us flies on a plane and makes a reference of a bomb or a fire, we never fly for life.
Oh, yeah. Right. Exactly. Yep. Well, this is like saying, well, you can bring bombs on planes as long as it's a well-behaved bomb, as long so, yeah, but
actually,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Sorry, if I may interject. If you just scroll down to the reply of the American Kennel Club, that actually the American Kennel Club called the ban an overreaction and said the airline should look at tougher standards from dog carriers rather than a ban on certain breeds. Now that reply, or that answer, actually reminded me of the answer that I got from my neighbor after the dog attacked me. The thing that he said when I confronted him was, like, the first question he asked was, well, did anything happen to you? And then I said, well, no, because I defended myself. And then he said, well, then what are you so upset about? Nothing happened. Yeah. And this is basically the same answer from the American Kennel Club. I mean, they might just have said, well, what are you so upset about? Nothing happened. Yeah. So there's no ban necessary,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a near miss, though. I mean, the plane did lose. I mean, some of the the dog damaged some critical components of the plane, like their navigation system went out, and there were some other. I think they had some radio difficulties, and that could cause a crash, right? Like if they lose communications. So even though the plane is still flyable, if they don't have communications, you could have a mid-air collision or some other kind of disaster. So they could kick off sort of a cascading series of fails. But Mr. J raises a good point. And it's probably going to happen at some point if we don't reverse this soon. Something like this is going to happen, and it's going to kill a lot of people. And what are the dog nutters going to say then? Oh, yeah, we should keep bringing dogs on planes. Is that going to be the reaction?
Make planes dog proof. Put them in a bulletproof cage in there so they can run around and have snacks and endless water supply.
Well, I think what they're saying here. It's funny. I'm now trying to remember. It was a segment with Kidder. He hasn't been on a call for quite a while. We're talking about this, and I Googled something, and I'm not going to, but I Googled these super heavy duty dog crates. I mean, it's like the whole thing is made out of like 3/8 inch thick, like quadruple carbon steel. Like seriously, like you couldn't break into it or out of it with like a blowtorch. It's used to contain these hyper aggressive dogs. And then the funny thing was, when I brought it up, for the next 6 months or so, I kept getting bombarded with ads for the thing. Talk about the stupid algorithms. But so yeah, I mean, they could say, okay, that's now the standard for bringing these things in the airplane. But that's or if you have a dog in a cabin, what if the dog, I mean, I guess that the cockpits are way more secure now due to 9/11, but what if it gets in the cockpit what if it attacks the pilot and the co-pilot when they're trying to fly? What if they're trying to, sorry, go
What if
ahead.
you get another pilot that wants a service dog with him, or like an emotional support dog? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's a pilot that probably should lose their license, because people who pursue those things really don't take their job seriously. But anyway, that's I wanted to segue. I mean, any other thoughts on this before I move on to another topic? I guess
No,
not.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Go.
I wanted to talk about some, next dog situations. I know, Joe, like you and I were talking about, the different living arrangements and stuff, and this comes up quite often. But I thought this was interesting. Talk about dogs first mentality. I call like I don't know if folks are familiar, but there's a social media site called NextDog. And when you sign up for it, you can really, it's not like, say, Twitter or Facebook. You can only interact with people that live in relatively close proximity, say a couple of miles or 3 kilometers or so. And it's a forum to discuss community affairs, right? And the thing is, 65 or 70% of what's on there is dog related, of course. It's like loose dogs, missing dogs, found dogs, dog crap, dog barking, dog at large, dog this and dog that, and and sometimes there's people, like there's this one couple of idiots who just do nothing but post pictures of dogs. It's not even dog necessarily, like my dog is missing or I found this dog, which I guess, could be considered a community affair. Like, I don't think that's not per se abuse of the forum, but you get some of them that just flat out abuse the forum and just look at this cute doggy and look at that cute doggy and look at these other cute doggies. Oh, and here's more pictures of cute doggies. And, and a lot of the information that's shared on there is important. Right. Like, one reason I was going to do a segment last weekend, but, I live on the East Coast of Florida, but we did get whacked by that hurricane and I was without power for about 2 days. But that's, where a site like that is useful. I mean, provided you have internet access, my phone still worked and I could use that as a hotspot for my other devices, where people share information. It's like, okay, where's the power out? What gas stations have gas? Where can I get ice? Where can I get clean water? Where can I get hot food? Where I live on the coast and I need to shelter. There's like a lot of, it can be used for good things, but these dog nutters flood it with all this dog shit, figuratively and literally. But I found this was interesting. And there's a few cases here I want to go over. So this person writes, homeowners association fees have doubled in the last few years to $300. This is highway robbery. I don't know who's running the neighborhood. And Joe, that goes back to the land use or the neighborhood selection discussion we had. Kyle, you should know, right? Like, if you buy into, if you live in an HOA community, you should know who the board members are, what the bylaws are, right? Mm-hmm. And how the community's supposed to function. Now, if you live in an unlocked community like mine, well, who's running the neighborhood is the county, ostensibly, right? But you know what, dummy? You should know. And this guy is it's him with his dog, right? Now, I don't know who's running the neighborhood. They waste money on mulch that rained out the next day. They wasted money on the street, the blacktop done 6 months ago. Street looks like crap. All the driveways need to be pressure washed, right? Landscaping is crap. Where's all my money gone? But now we get to the punchline. What's prioritized over everything else? I suggest the neighborhood builds us a dog park in the northeast corner of the neighborhood by the pool. So forget about everything else, right? The top priority, right, of this, public money is to build a dog park. That's the top priority.
You know what? They did that over here. I kind of pointed briefly at it the last call. They're going to put a 44,000 square foot dog park in our community over here. It's kind of like this walkway where people have houses in between. So they're going to put this huge dog park in there. And when I called the city council to complain, I got someone to call me back. And you know how they decided to do this? They called no public forums, no nothing. It was done on the administrative level.
Right. So basically, well, so that's it's a city, it's a municipal park, right? The city's paying for it. So yeah, well,
that's
dog
horrible.
nutters. Well, yeah, they yeah, well, dog nutters have, converged that bureaucracy, and they're just going to do whatever they think is the right thing to do. That comes up often, development and, really public money. I mean, you could argue like with an HOA, right? Because that's a private entity, that I don't know if governing authority is the right term, but they've at least managing authority over that neighborhood. When you buy into one of those communities, you're adhering to pay the fees and adhere to the rules stipulated by the association. And sometimes people complain. They say, "Well, I don't play golf, but I'm basically being forced to pay for maintenance of the golf course." But it's like, well, you agreed to those stipulations. But unless it was stipulated initially when they moved in, then yeah, they shouldn't be like forcing non-dog owners to pay for this stuff. It should be, provided they're legal to be owned at all, it should be all private money. It's like, hey, Kyle, how about you and the other dog people chip in for that? Right? How about you?
But it's corny.
How about you buy the land? You buy the land. You and your peers buy the land and pay to have it developed, pay to have it maintained, instead of forcing everybody else to do it, right? It's part of really what's being expressed here is an extreme sense of entitlement. None of this other stuff matters. The only thing that matters is, meeting the interests of him and perhaps the other dog people. That's what's being expressed here.
But the craziest thing is this neighborhood over here in Southbridge where I'm at, it's got to be one of the weirdest HOAs ever. The HOA is run by the city. So they maintain all the grounds, they pay for all the crews, they pay for all the road repairs. And if your neighbor complains, they'll come, the city will send someone out to cite you for, cars or landscaping or garbage or whatever, okay? But we don't have no say in anything that they build. And that's where they get to play that game.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
So the city can come over and send code enforcement and whatever over here, but you cannot do shit if they decide they want to put that dog park.
Yeah, that's an interesting arrangement. In my case, if I live in, an unlocked neighborhood, but, I'm subject to the jurisdiction, well, not, the county, the state, the federal government. So like, if the state of Florida wanted to come in and build a dog park here, there's really not much I can do about it except, complain to my, state legislator. But that's really the problem. And I think too is, maybe it's a distinction without much of a difference. If the entity, it's sort of a private, or if it really is a government entity, it's the same kind of thing. So that's, but that's what's, being expressed here is that, they're like, we're just going to, we got all these other problems, but who cares? It's a relative privation fail. We don't care about those things. We care about our, dog. And the ironic thing is that, let's say this facility is developed or constructed, it's going to become a shithole, and most of the dog people aren't going to want to use it anyway. That's what happens with these dog parks, and why they keep demanding more dog parks. They're like, well, I don't take my dog to the dog park because it's it's filthy and noisy and dangerous. It's like, because that's the problem with dog parks. They're full of dogs. That's why they're such unpleasant places to be.
Yeah, you're not seeing the problem. Like, you know what? It's hell in here because I'm in hell, but I don't notice why. It's like, come on, don't do that. That makes you look so stupid.
Yeah. So I found that interesting. This was another one I wanted to look at too. This was, let me move this out of the way. This was something else that came up. I'm curious if anyone else has been a victim of having someone else's dog waste thrown in the back of their parked truck. So there was a lot of, I think Kanon did an episode, and actually I've reported on it too. Well, first you got the problem of dog crap everywhere, but you also have a problem when they pick it up but don't properly dispose of it. They just bag it and throw it in the gutter or whatever. And so, or was this targeted attack? Or maybe it's just a sheer lack of respect to another one's property and plain laziness. It's probably, it might be somebody who has it in for you, but they don't want to carry the dog crap bag around. So they just toss it in the nearest receptacle they can. Oh, there's a pickup truck over there. I'll just throw the dog shit in the back of that guy's pickup truck.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Good. God, these people. But it just shows you, it goes to the nature of the kind of people we're dealing with. I don't know if you remember, there was that other incident. I think Sheepie, you were on that chat where it was in Sweden, and there was this mystery pipe just kind of sticking out of the ground, maybe, I don't know, foot and a half in diameter. And nobody, also all the dog walkers.
Oh, yeah, I was on that call.
Yeah, all the dog walkers are throwing their crap down this pipe. And then what happened was the city was expanding the subway network, and they're using explosives to break up the rock. But anyway, the blast wave from one of the detonations intersected this pipe and essentially literally turned into this shit cannon. So all that dog shit, boom, got blown out of the pipe and just showered this entire neighborhood with dog crap. It almost sounded like something you would see in a goofy comedy. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. But that's what they'll just throw it anywhere. They put it in people's recycling bins, and then your recycling doesn't get picked up because they're not going to take the recycling if it has dog crap in it. So that's a problem. So now it's creating all these, peripheral, problems as it sort of, spreads out from the source. So I wanted to move on to, I guess, were there any more thoughts about this before I go on to the next? There's even more like NextDog issues to talk about.
Yeah, just real quick on that. And that's another problem that seems to keep moving forward. We've had the progression of dog shit to now it's mobile. So before you had these idiots just walking their dogs, just letting them crap, shit, piss everywhere, not picking it up. Then there was this huge movement to say, hey, be a good neighbor, pick up after your dog. Okay, so then they started inventing these doggy bags. Well, all they've done now is made it mobile now. Like you said,
Yep.
there's a pickup truck, there's a pipe, there's somebody's front yard. There,
Yep.
hey, let me just roll it up and leave it right where it is in the bag.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
disgusting. It's such like a health hazard. I don't think people
It
appreciate
is.
like how much of a biohazard this all really is.
You've got the contamination from the bag, and then you've got the contamination in the bag.
Yep.
So it's like double entendre. You
Yep.
know, let
It's
me add an
actually
extra spice to that.
it's an unintended consequence. Yeah, it's made it worse. I see that on hikes, and occasionally even see they'll decorate trees with it. So you'll see a tree, and
Oh,
all the crap bags are hanging from branches. Like,
wow.
ugh, town.
They always come up with a new one. Like let's play with our food. Where can we put crap now? You know
Yeah,
what? Let me put it on people's side view mirrors.
yeah,
Decorate their car with it for Halloween.
yeah,
It's like, come on, stop coming up with stupid ideas. Just take that shit with you. That's
yeah.
all we ask.
Or even better, don't bring the dog into the community in the first place.
Oh, well, that's something we've discussed many a times, but they just
Yep.
seem to love their dumb dog, whatever
Yeah,
name they choose to give it.
yeah. The other thing I want to talk about too, this is more like neighbor, next dog or dog door like nuttery. So this one person has been, flooding the board really for years about her blind dog that's continually escaping. Okay, probably need to blank this out. This is this address here, but I want to thank my wonderful neighbors for grabbing and protecting my blind dog Oliver, then coming to my home to get me. He had dug under the fence, got out. I didn't even know he was gone. I tried everything to stop the digging. I'm at my wits' end taking all suggestions. This was posted 2.5 years ago. Anyway, since he is blind, I'm always terrified he will run in front of a car if he gets out. They saved him. I was so freaked out that I didn't get their names, but please know that you are my heroes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And this is ongoing. This is constantly this blind dog. And she always makes a point too. It's like, yeah, my dog is blind. He can't see. He can't see because he's blind. Did I say he's blind? Let's go around the room. Has everybody got straight that the dog is blind, right? He's blind, 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 and he's constantly getting out, running the community. The community in question is, it's one of these HOA communities, but it fronts a highway, not an interstate, but a 4-lane highway where, cars are going 70 miles an hour. And yeah, the dog's it's probably, talking about moral luck. It's basically, she's incredibly lucky that the dog hasn't been turned into road pizza, but this keeps happening over and over and over again. It seems that the narrative is, it's like, oh yeah, if you see the dog, like, give Beth a call or grab the dog and hold on to it till she gets home. And my narrative is that, the dog needs to be handed over to animal control. Like if I were living there, and I mean, I'm not going to try to catch the dog, but let's say hypothetically, if I were to, I'm not giving it back to her. I'm giving it back to animal control, because they've told me, the animal control here, like if you trap or catch a loose dog, they'll come get him. They'll impound him. So you know what? That's what needs to happen. The dog needs to be confiscated if it's running loose, confiscated by animal control, and she can pay a fee to get it back or pay a fine to get it back, right? Because clearly that talking to her about this, she's unable to keep the dog in a humane and socially responsible way. And you kind of saw that, expressed here. This is another one. And when I first read this, and this is how I got clued into this whole thing, it says, "Hi, I'm looking for Beth, Oliver's mom." Now, when I first read this, I'm thinking, okay, is this like a real mom, or is this a dog mom? So it says, I almost ran him over. He was so scared as he is blind. So everybody in this community knows what the deal is with this dog. I put him in my Jeep and have called a number on his tags and gone by here. So the dog has escaped. The owner's not available. Okay, the neighbor took the dog temporarily, so I would have taken to my house, but I have 3 dogs. If you know, please contact me. So this is the second time this week that the dog has been out. Okay. Poor guy, he is so afraid. So he was out again last night. As far as I can tell, actually this past Monday, this happened at least twice. So the dog got loose, was caught, brought back to the owner. It subsequently got loose again the same day and was all again caught and brought back to the owner. And actually, that's just what we know about. It's probably just the tip of the iceberg. So this constant drama where this person, she cannot properly contain or control the dog. And yet, but she's made that a problem for the entire community, right? There's elements of virtue signaling here also, because they, oh, look at me. I'm the dog mom of this poor blind dog that can't see. Aren't I a good person? But clearly she's not. Again, even if you're somebody who likes dogs, this is not a good situation. Somebody down here made this point too. She drove, okay, but people find, she left a voicemail, blah, blah, blah. I said, something needs to be done to prevent him from getting out. Do you think? This has been going on for 4 years. 4 years. This has been, because I dug into the, the posters, originally, the owner's history, and it's just page after page of this stuff. And it's like, this is, I mean, the dog isn't, it's some kind of Catahoula hound, I think. And so it's not, I mean, it probably is endangering people in the sense that if the dog does run out onto the highway and cause a pileup, people could be killed. I mean, this is not something to be contemplated lightly. So yeah, it's probably not going to maul a kid, but it could still create bad outcomes. But yet this owner is just keeps letting the same thing happen over and over. It's like, clearly you haven't tried everything. Or one thing you could try is giving the dog away. Have you tried that?
The other thing is, let's just start calling it what it is from now on. Nutters have something called patterns. They all say the same things. They all say the same things. They all do the same things. They all do the same things. And the only reason why I'm repeating that is because if you look at this story, the dog is blind. Doesn't Joe have a blind dog problem too? Why are all these dogs all of a sudden blind? But they know how to get out. They know how to attack people. They know how to terrorize the neighborhood. They know how to be dicks.
Yep. Well, it's right, Joe. I forgot about that, because wasn't the claim that the dog, the attempted assault on you, wasn't that dog purported blind also?
Yeah, blind and deaf, actually.
Blind
and deaf. Patterns.
Yeah.
But yet that dog locked onto you like a Sidewinder missile. I mean, clearly, I mean, I don't know what, maybe it was your cologne, perhaps. I don't know. How did the dog know to go, pursue that vector?
It had its tongue out. It tasted the air.
But that's a good point.
It tasted Joe's feet. Just alone from
got a good taste of that. So that's a good question. Like, that, yeah, is the dog even blind? Is even that portion of the story, is there any veracity to that? Because they'll say anything, particularly to gain virtue signaling points.
I'm kind of surprised no one has suggested that she gets a service dog for the blind dog, like a seeing eye dog.
That's interesting you'd bring that up, because actually it's interesting.
It needs a companion to help it get around and bite children.
Yeah, it's interesting.
The answer to this problem is obviously another dog.
That's interesting, because I've
had someone do that before.
she did have another. That's what's interesting. I forgot. Well, the thing is, like, I'm trying to condense this. I don't want to do a 12-hour segment just on this because there's a lot of angles to this. But apparently, she did have another dog that died earlier this year, and apparently, as she was claiming that dog was this dog's service dog.
See.
Oh my God.
You cannot
No, I'm
make this shit
serious.
You
up.
can't
That was
even make it up. No.
So I think it's because that was
Cannot.
something that came up was that one reason Oliver, maybe he's trying to escape to find he's a blind dog endlessly trying to find a service dog. Is that a service dog angle that hasn't been tried yet? Somebody goes to a grocery store with 2 dogs and somebody
It
asks,
happened to
okay,
IHD.
yeah,
The guy walked in with 2 service pit bulls without leashes with vests. He
but
just walked
was
into
one
the store.
dog, what would the claim be? It's like, well, is that a service dog required because of a disability? And what does the dog do? And it's like, well, yeah, Rover is Fido's guide dog. That's the service. So it's like, but why is the
He
other
gets
dog,
anxiety.
you know? but that
Needs
was
the other
actually,
dog to comfort him.
that was the claim, was that this dog actually did have a service dog, which is probably one of the most like ridiculous claims ever, but that's what it was. The other dog did look like it was some low content pit mix. But this dog, I thought that this whole thing was, but now it's like, it's become everybody's problem. You're like, oh no, Oliver is loose again. Everybody like going to mobilize a whole neighborhood to find the poor blind dog for the 947th time.
Yeah, this
I would
woman is
find a way to
basically like,
report her.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Sheepie, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, dog culture incentivizes this. Like,
It
this
does.
woman is completely incentivized to constantly flood this neighborhood's like chat with the saga of her blind dog, and like you said,
Yep.
mobilize the community to like deal with her blind dog, because
Yeah.
like it's like a virtue signaling, but even more than that. She's like incentivized, she gets attention, which is really what these people are constantly seeking. She gets like to virtue signal by constantly reminding everyone that she's got a blind dog.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just like our culture incentivizes these things by not publicly shaming these people for
Oh yeah.
their
Yeah.
ridiculous
That's a
behavior.
good point.
Yeah.
She's taking the dog mom Batman symbol and putting it up in the sky, for everyone to see. It's
What?
like, and how many years has she been doing this and nobody's caught on that there's a hustle going on here? Like,
Yeah.
hey,
Oh,
look
yeah.
at me over here, the
Yeah.
dog mom. I'm alone, dog mom over here, dog mom.
Yeah.
Sickening.
It is. You're right. It is a hustle. It's a hustle for, yeah, it is to draw attention to herself. Crazy people. Yeah, you brought up the bat signal. Yeah, that's what she needs a so every time Oliver gets out, they can, broadcast that at the cloud, right? But instead of the bat, it's like a dog. So you look up, oh no, it's Oliver out again.
Mutt.
He is just
A
my
mutated
blind
mud
dog.
in the sky.
My blind dog who can't see because he's blind, because he's vision impaired. He is escaping again. And everybody's running down the street, like the whole neighborhood's mobilized around this. And yeah, probably, well, like we've discussed, like with situations we've all been in, like with Joe's situation or, Mr. J's situation. If you say anything, if you're remotely critical of this, you become a pariah, right? You get burned at the stake for, it's like, okay, maybe, and actually this one person at the bottom, right, just says, well, he deserves better. It's like, yeah, the whole neighborhood deserves better, right? Like, but she said something needs to be done to prevent him from getting out, or someone more responsible needs to start taking care of the dog. But even something like this, innocuous, like Judy is responding to Michelle. This is, even in dog culture, this is intolerable hate speech, right? This is thought criminality. The only acceptable narrative is, yeah, every time the dog escapes, everybody's going to stop doing what you're doing, right? Stop working or trimming your hedges or performing some other activity. Everybody drop what they're doing and find the dog, the poor blind dog that can't see because he's blind and vision impaired is now loose again.
Yeah, somebody needs to get their search and rescue dog out to go find the dog whose eyes don't work
Yep.
because it's blind.
Oh no, what we
didn't know.
do, we'll help her with the sign. We'll help her with the sign, right? So the dog cannot see. So what you do is you get a dog symbol, you get, get the outline of a dog, and then you get the cross out dog symbol because the dog cannot see. And then that way it's tolerable to you and every other dog hater because it's really telling everybody no dogs.
But you got to watch it too, because I believe, this community in question, this is one of these HOA communities. And I've shared some of this on these calls, is that, these neighborhoods often have dog problems. And if you out yourself as a dog critic, it's like things can go really bad for you. They'll start fining you for every stupid little thing. They'll, I mean, even though it's not necessarily the legal system with a private HOA, but they'll weaponize the system such as it is against you, right? For your, intolerable, thought crime.
Right. Well, I mean, like in Joe's situation, you would think the parents would be extremely happy that their daughter is back and they have, family near them, especially as they age. But no, the dog in the neighborhood takes precedence over that. And now, after only living there for like a few months, you guys are like, we should probably move again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to cover another topic. Really was a recap of, let's see, what else did I have on here? Yeah, we covered, I got something else. Where is that? I want to talk about this. Maybe it's in a kind of a lighter note, but I think, was it IHD or Canon who posted this to their community page? This Maori Blue, this YouTube channel, is apparently, it's a YouTube channel dedicated to, I think it's in Brazil, because if you look at, I think it's, I believe this is in, if you look at this, email address, the .br, I think denotes Brazil. Maybe Joe's speaks multiple languages. I don't know, I think that this might be Portuguese, but in any case, that's probably not all that relevant. But this host seems to have dedicated this channel to, what he does is he prepares these very elaborate, 5-star meals for his dog. This looks like it's an XL bully. The one in the one in question was, we go back this.
I don't know if it's just me, but your audio has gone totally bad.
Yeah, it's
Same for
going
me
off
as
and
well.
on.
Okay, yeah, you know why it's probably. So yeah, go back. Maybe I'll edit that out. So anyway, yeah,
That's just nuts.
in this segment, he's preparing a lobster for the dog, and look at it licking its chops, right? So he's
Just
preparing a lobster.
Just begging the whole time.
So he cooks it. He boils a lobster. Then he takes it apart, and then he spoon feeds it to the dog, right? Well, there he's spooning some of it up. And look, Rover's like, he's all excited. Yeah, you got to, you don't want to make sure, you don't want to feed your dog lobster without lemon. That would be animal abuse, right? So here he is. Yeah, so he's feeding the lobster to the dog. Now, this whole YouTube channel is like this, right? This whole YouTube channel is like this. Yeah, so he's spoon feeding more lobster to the dog, right? But and he's got all these videos that are essentially the same thing, right? So Here's a lobster video, short ribs. Where was the one? There was one with, yeah, look at this one. So in here, look at this T-bone. Oh, shoot, I got an ad. Yeah,
This channel has 6.7 million subscribers almost.
Oh, sorry.
That is
Stop.
just disgusting.
Look at that steak. Actually, he's got 2 dogs here. Look at that steak. I mean, I might eat like that, like a half a dozen times a year, right? And I'm not a poor
But
person.
think of all the people they have starving in Brazil.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Cabela's, and he's up here serving up this nasty, disgusting, child mauling mutant mutt.
What's the other
Gourmet
thing
food.
too? It's like, yeah, I mean, isn't the dog just free ranging on toddlers and outdoor cats? But this is like,
Well,
and normally,
the animal has no palate to understand what you're even giving it.
exactly. Like you
It's just
could
gonna wolf
probably,
it down and shit it out and re-eat it.
exactly. Well, you know, it'd be interesting experiment would be to, okay, you prepare one of these expensive, elaborate meals for the dog, but then you also grab a cat litter box full of turds and you set them both out and see which one the dog goes for. I mean, what's the over under on the dog going for the cat litter box first? I think it's not 100%, but it's likely. You
It's
know,
likely to eat both. They'll eat everything you put in front of them.
yeah, exactly. Like they don't care. Yeah, and they don't see the difference either. So it's like, I mean, you know, even if somebody who likes dogs, it's just like, I mean, you could say, is it wrong necessarily? Like sometimes people in our space, you know, like they're like, well, people shouldn't
But a
be.
lot of these foods he's feeding the dog are too rich. They're not. These people are up there like jumping up and down because he's giving these dogs decadent food. But a lot of these foods are too rich, and
Yep.
so they aren't able to even process it. So it's not even really getting any nutrients. It's
Yeah.
just filling its stomach with trash to the dog. The dog could be eating
Yeah.
a pile of cardboard. It wouldn't know any different.
Yeah, I wouldn't know that. Yeah, the dog doesn't know any different. And you're right. It's probably at least some of this stuff is not good for the dog, right?
Oh, speaking for someone with a culinary degree, I don't know anything about food.
I would take it honestly as far as to say that this is unethical. Personally, I don't know if everyone would, not everyone probably would agree with that, but like
No,
personally,
I
I
do.
do
And
find
you should see
this
the
to be
disgust in my
like
face, not
morally
to talk over.
repugnant.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah,
sort
you
of
got
like,
starving people. You've got like families don't even feed their own children this well. Like I don't know, man. We live in a world that's got issues with sustainability already. Like it just seems repugnant to me that this is like a genre of entertainment for people. I don't know. It feels a little bit like another humiliation ritual in a way. You know, we
yes, absolutely. It
Boom. And
is.
that's why we need Sheepie on these calls. How many viewers does this person have?
they've got over almost
Yeah,
7 million
see, look down
subscribers.
here.
It
They
looks
got,
like.
yeah,
See,
over
that's the
6.6 million subscribers. Now, this video
6.6.
only got 51,000 views.
Oh,
Um,
only 51,000.
yeah, only, that's all. But you're right. It is sort of I mean, imagine like, you know, I got an idea for a new channel. Yeah, I'm going to make like these really expensive, you know, foo-foo meals, right? This is the same one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare them and then I'm going to urinate all over them and flush them down the toilet. Now, yes, no, is that a good idea for like a theme? Because really, in a sense, that's what's being expressed here. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
it is. It's just horribly waste. And again, it's one of those things that's wrong on so many levels. It's you know, it's extreme conspicuous consumption. It's probably even animal abuse at some level because, you know, feeding your animal something that it might want to eat but isn't good for it is, you know, again, it's irresponsible. So there's a lot of bad things being, you know, expressed here.
It's I don't even know what term you would use to describe something like this, but there is like a genre for this. Like I've seen there's a woman, I'm pretty sure she's American, who has like 1 or 2 dogs that looks very much like this, like some kind of pit bull. And her whole like the content she creates is her doing like preparing meals like this for the dog and spoon feeding it, and also um like doing a spa day essentially for the dog. Like it shows her bathing the dog but using, like high-end um like shampoos and soaps and like lotions and like perfumes. It's just I don't even know how to describe this. Like conspicuous consumption for sure, but it feels like more than that because it's like it's a dog. A lot of people can't eat like this or pamper themselves like the woman does with her dogs. So it feels very like dehumanizing in a way to have to view this. I don't
Yeah,
know if that makes sense.
it is. There's
No,
something.
you're spot on. Let me interject real quick. I got a better
Sure.
way to say this. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna send all you nutters out to a quick crash course to go watch a video on how a Rolls Royce is made. And I'm gonna get a bespoke Rolls Royce, and I'm gonna wait 2 years for it to be made, and I'm gonna put no miles on it, and I'm gonna walk right over to a cliff and push it off.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's what you guys are doing.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, it's one thing, I'm not, into telling people how to spend their money. Like, if a Rolls Royce makes you happy, I'm not opposed to it, certainly. But yeah, as you pointed out, I am opposed to that kind of waste, because that's what's being expressed here also, is that, it's kind of like with my idea. There's no appreciable difference between this and on one hand and just, preparing the meal and then just flushing it down the toilet or throwing it in the gutter, right? It's just horrendously, wasteful, in so many ways and so many levels. Yeah, but I thought this was interesting. But the fact is that so many people. Let me take a look at the comments. It looks like, well, most of them looks like that looks like Russian.
Oh, the
Joe,
hearts
does
of
that look like
love.
Russian? Does that look
Yeah,
like
that's
Russian?
Russian, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks
You
like
can
Russian.
translate
Yeah, what is he saying? Super gourmands. Well,
No.
apparently,
Sheepie for the win.
my beautiful babies. Yeah, but apparently this stuff is very, like, I'm telling you, like, the zombie apocalypse can't start soon enough. I'm please it needs to come. So I thought this was interesting, and yeah, it's something for folks to think about. That it's conspicuous consumption, but like with a lot of this, I think there's something very deeply insidious about it that's kind of hard to put your finger on. It's just wrong. And like Sheepie said, it's like it's probably partially humiliation ritual. It's even like with the eating, it's like even with myself, it's like I probably could eat like that every day if I wanted to, but really I don't, because I have my boyish figure to maintain, right? Like, if I ate like that, I'd weigh 400 pounds. So I don't, and it's one of those, trade-offs in life, right? So, I don't eat like that myself, even though in theory I could if I wanted to. But yet they're feeding these dogs and some people don't because they can't afford it. But yet these dogs are eating that way, and apparently quite often also, because there's a ton of these videos. So I want
to
to
understand the psychology behind, like, what is appealing. Like the comments that are visible seem very positive and to be enjoying watching this content. Who actually watches this content? Like, who is this audience? You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like, who is this being made for, and how is it this successful that you have like almost 7 million subscribers? Like, I do not understand. I don't begin to understand like how this is something that isn't resoundingly like uh unpopular, or like you these people, like, you have no shame.
Yeah.
I don't know, honestly, you have no shame. There's kids in your own neighborhood, country, like, I think Brazil is pretty, like, well, I don't know that much about Brazil, but I think it's fairly well known for having these, like, huge discrepancies in, like, income. You have, like, extremely impoverished areas and then extremely wealthy areas, like, there's essentially no middle class. This, I feel like,
Yeah, that's what I was
should
saying.
be
The favelas
shameful.
are the ghettos.
Exactly, yeah, you have
Yeah, the
kids living in
favelas are the
favelas,
ghettos.
and then you have a guy cooking gigantic T-bones for a couple of dogs. I just don't
Like
understand
what
how this
no,
is
but
real.
to add to that, what if that was being played locally and they were able to see that? They would probably rush that dude's house and probably do some pretty unthinkable things to him and then dogs.
Yeah. Well,
For
interesting
rightly
though, it's
so.
like this is something known. It's a point I make often that this kind of activity is protected by dog culture. And because it's sort of like, okay, this guy's a dog owner, he can do no wrong. So whatever this this humiliation ritual that he's created is okay because he's doing it with dogs. Anything that involves a dog is per se good in their mindset. So yeah, if it was any other animal, probably it goes back to what Joe and I were talking about with the different categories of pet owner. Like actually, it's funny, even if you look at what's one of the first comments that pops up: dogs can't eat avocado. And that's another problem with this. Like, well, actually, we all noted was that probably a lot of this stuff isn't even good for the dogs, but somehow feeding it to them is cute, and you have to, part of keeping an animal in a humane way is you only allow it to eat things that's appropriate. Right. Like, well, for example, you take other like herbivores. Sometimes people get into trouble with horses because somebody will be driving through the country and they'll see some horses. And so they stop the car and, depends on the horses, but they'll, approach and they'll feed the horse dog biscuits or something of that nature. And I'm like, congratulations, you probably just killed the horse. Because if a horse eats something with meat in it, it can become gravely ill or even die. Because again, it's not their obligate herbivores. You can't feed them stuff like that. And many animals have foods that are toxic to them or inappropriate or whatever, right? And anyways, right up top says dogs can't eat avocado, right? And children in orphanages have bread and lard. Oh, they really like that. My beautiful babies. This is a great chef and he feeds very good, disciplined dogs. Oh,
Hold on, go back to that one real quick. It only got one, it got no one like or something about that, about the guy saying to get bread and lard.
yeah. Well, probably nobody's how many. This only has 53 comments. Maybe they're filtered, but even though it's many of these are critical of what's being expressed here, but
Good.
many of them are not. So yeah, this is the dog cannot eat avocado. It's not good for them. So here's another one of those things where even I think regardless of what your worldview is, they're like nothing good is being expressed here, right? Nothing. But yet, it seems to be very, very popular. And I'm sure this is somebody who's of these 6.8 million, 6.6 million subscribers. I'm sure he's very popular. He's probably monetized. It's probably where he gets the money to do it. So it's, self-supporting or self-perpetuating.
I don't agree with animal abuse of any kind, obviously. But I think it's interesting that here in this case, and like with the blind dog or whatever, the only allowable criticism is that which is in interest of the dog's well-being.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, you can criticize this guy not for feeding the dog steak, but avocado is not good for the dog. Or like the dog
Yeah.
that's constantly escaping and running around loose in the neighborhood. Well, it's not good for the dog. It needs a better owner. Like the
Yep.
interest is always, you know what I mean? Like the framing is always what's best for the dog, not for
Yep.
society. Is this good for society? Is it good for society at large, that these dogs are eating better than most people? That's not ever really called into, like, there's 1 or 2 comments maybe.
Right.
I don't know, it just seems like the framing of all of this is always focused on the well-being of the dogs,
Yep.
primarily.
Well, you're right, because that's the only critique that can gain traction. As often I recommend that to people. Like, let's say you've got a neighborhood yard barker that, I mean, your top priority is to return peace to your home, right? That's front and center. But often the only way you can get traction on that is to call out the mistreatment of the dog. I mean, it shouldn't be but that's the problem is in our society, it's like the only thing that's of any consideration ever are the best or, the perceived best interests of the dog and or the dog owner. There's nothing else is of any consideration ever. But, if that's the only card you have, then that's the card you play, I guess. So, but that's that. Yeah, I thought this was very, very interesting. Yeah, he's feeding, and this is probably, that's another thing that comes up often, particularly in the canine community section, is that, the nutter is always accusing him. Well, you can't critique dogs because you're not an expert. But you don't really need to be
And
an
wait, and
expert.
hold on real quick. Another thing, that's a butter avocado. Do you understand the amount of acid content that and the richness and the density? That one right there would probably make me super sick because of the acid. Because I had to figure out what there were certain foods that I could eat and couldn't eat. And I
Yeah,
can eat avocados, but that one with there right there would kill me.
yeah.
So there is really no way he should be giving that dog that. The fat content alone, I'll stop.
Yeah, no, but that's good input because they, call people like us. They say, well, it's this appeal to authority. But there's a couple of things. First of all, they don't know anything, demonstratably. They're all incompetent. And many of us do have expertise in various areas, like you brought up. You have the culinary degree, you're a professional chef, you understand what things about, because actually I didn't know that. Now I wouldn't eat a lot of avocado anyway. Maybe I'll have some guacamole dip once in a while, but yeah, I wouldn't
But
eat
it's
that.
different because you can see it's clearly yellow. It's not green.
Yeah,
Because usually avocado is a yellowish green. My grandmother, my mother's mother, we had a Haas avocado tree in our backyard in LA. I grew up with brown paper bags of avocados. We had German Shepherds growing up. What is someone going to tell me about knowing nothing about dogs? I've had
yep,
them growing up. I know about avocados. We knew damn well the dog wasn't supposed to eat them, but she ate them anyways.
yep,
It's like,
yeah.
dude, don't give me that.
But yeah, they accuse us of being, but then they'll think, oh, something like this is a great idea, And they see them, they want pup cups, for their dogs, and they go to the drive-through, the cup full of whipped cream is whipped cream.
Not good for them.
I would
Do you
expect.
Dairy isn't
recall
good for
do you
dogs.
recall that people got mad, that parents started asking for essentially, like, pup cups for their kids? And they're saying like, "Oh, you're gonna ruin it for our dogs. So by
Yeah,
asking to have these for your kids, you're ruining it for the dogs." Like,
you're ruining
it's
it for the
just,
dogs.
do you
Yeah,
remember that? There was like a whole
yeah,
like,
Yeah,
uh
yeah. They told kids they couldn't have them because initially they were for kids. They weren't for the dogs. And then somebody suggested, like, well, maybe we should give it to the dog, call it a pup cup.
yeah.
yeah, and now it's like, it's like only intended for
Well,
animals. Like,
that's a
I don't know,
good
it's just
thought.
another
Yeah,
example of like kids always coming last in these scenarios.
yeah, yeah. What was he mixing with it there? That liquid. What is
Some
that?
kind of cream, it
That's
looks like.
heavy cream.
Oh God.
Oh my God, what is this
I mean,
thing
don't you think
doing?
like you're going to need an angioplasty just looking at this?
Hold on a second. Now you here's the other part of this, you guys. You're probably not gonna like about me, and it's gonna be kind of gross, funny. But what is going on with what's coming out the backside of these dogs after they eat all that shit?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure they
Because
get.
we know damn well their bowels are gonna be as loose as water.
Yeah, they're.
So I
Oh,
really
Dogs
hope
probably
he's got a water hose to clean all them buttholes of dripping dogs. Because
yeah. Oh, totally. It's a. There's
especially
going
with
to be
those
some
eggs and
big time.
cream, what's gonna be solid there?
well, they probably receive better medical care than a lot of humans too at this point. I
Oh
mean, this,
my
you know what I mean?
God.
Like, the amount of
Oh.
money people spend for their dogs, like veterinary bills, these dogs probably get better medical care than a lot of kids in
Yeah.
Brazil.
And they're probably complaining too, was like, oh no, it's like all this health care for my dogs. If there's like irritable bowel syndrome or whatever. Oh, it's
Mm.
so expensive. It costs $500 a month to treat. Well, you know what, dummy? Maybe if you didn't feed your dog stuff like this, it wouldn't have that problem. Right.
Ah.
It's another, it's just like everything. It's another, self-inflicted disaster. All right. I think enough of that. I want to move on to something else real quick. And
No,
this,
yeah, Joe passed out.
yeah, yeah, it's like, no, please, no more. You please don't subject. Yeah, I'm going to wrap this up in another 10 minutes. But Joe, you and we'd had a discussion a few weeks ago on self-defense against dogs, which really, it becomes part of sort of a larger self-defense conversation, and it seems that a lot of places that the threshold for using violence and self-defense against a dog is actually higher than it is for humans in a lot of places, and that many people who utilize self-defense tactics against these things are frequently charged with various crimes, typically animal cruelty. So, if you shoot the dog or stab the dog that as you're, that is mauling your 2-year-old, well, that's animal cruelty. I mean, in their minds, right? Which is ridiculous, but they get away with it. They want, and often people are jacked up on these BS charges because, like I said, the system, not everywhere, but many places, is weaponized against people that do that. Your mileage may vary by location, but I wanted to just recap that, and we could discuss some of these things briefly because there's a lot covered. So I made 7 bullet points here, and this is on my old blog. I sort of use it to keep track of my thoughts. So, point 1, educate yourself in applicable laws. What do you have the statutory authorization to do? Okay, that's important, right? And what you think is legal might not be, and vice versa. Perhaps you have options that you think might be illegal but are. So there's that to consider. To always do that. Again, this is a very serious matter, and also to become fluent in the use of your self-defense article, even if you're just going to use your hands and feet. Get professional training, right? And that relates closely to the below point because I've had multiple classes involving the use of firearms and also perhaps other weapons also. But this is a point we didn't get to. I always think of things later. This is an important one also. Get over your resistance to use violence, even against an animal. Because a lot of times you see these videos, there's a dog attack and somebody's being mauled and everybody's just kind of standing around. Maybe they're swatting at the dog or pushing at it or whatever. And I think, part of what's being expressed there is that most people today have an aversion to use violence even against an animal. Like, I'll give you, like, for example, if you take several generations ago, say like pre-1900, most people were I guess, a lot closer to how things worked in the real world. So if you wanted chicken for dinner, what did you do? You know, you didn't go to Safeway and buy a shrink wrapped chicken like you do now. No, you went out back to the barnyard, you grabbed a chicken and whack, and that was dinner. Very few people today have that kind of background. So you have to consider that it's one thing to say in the abstract. It's like, yeah, I'm going to blow that shit bull away. But you really got to ask yourself, do you really have what it takes to do that? One thing I recommend is like, you might want to do this anyway, is you might want to try hunting or varminting. You know, sometimes I talk about feral hogs on here, and it's open season on them in much of the country. Even in Eastern Europe also, I believe, or at least maybe it's a little more restricted there. But there's very few, again, always think of this like, what can I actually do, right? But the thing is that, you know, going to a range and shooting a target, or if you're, you know, punching or kicking a bag, right, that's quite different than actually killing something. And that's something that people, or injuring it, right? So, you know, you might want to try that, because maybe you go hog hunting and you got them in your crosshairs and you just can't pull a trigger. It happens to many people. It's not uncommon. So you need to think about that, right? Particularly if you're going to put yourself in harm's way. You know, it happens. So I said you may not find killing or otherwise harming a living thing as easy as you thought, right? So I made the point is one reason why bystanders and dog attacks don't do much, you know, because they haven't gotten past that reluctance. So that's something for people to think about. You also want to, you know, think through the scenarios beforehand. We discussed that. And Joe, you made this point, be the first to call police, because if something happens, because the default assumption of police is that whoever calls them first is the victim. Again, typically, maybe not 100% of the time, but most of the time. And this is something, and this came up, but this point 6 can't be emphasized enough. You have to think through beforehand how you're going to present yourself in the aftermath. So let's say you stab or shoot somebody's dog in self-defense. How you, as my buddy, you know, the retired cop would say, how you present yourself to authorities is critical. And that's how I think a lot of these animal cruelty claims come up, is that, you know, if somebody has an aggressive posture, then they're going to say, aha, you wanted to hurt that dog. Like the motive wasn't entirely self-defense. So, you know, as you said, you want to, you know, avoid an aggressive posture, and also don't apologize. So if you have to say shoot or stab a dog in self-defense, the only thing you say, sometimes people say don't say anything to police. I think you do want to make a very brief statement. What you say is, again, I've had professional guidance on this also, is that you say that thing was threatening my safety and I did what I had to do. Okay? And that's it, until your lawyer gets there, and then he or she can do the rest of the talking. And the other thing that's important is do not apologize. Like if you start saying, oh no, I'm so sorry, they're like, aha. Like if you're apologizing, you're admitting that you did something wrong and you didn't. So even if they ask you, you're sorry? No. Why? Because I didn't do anything wrong. So avoid an aggressive posture and don't apologize. So that, because I think it's where a lot of these people, you know, wind up, you know, being arrested, is either they present, you know, an aggressive posture, and or they apologize for doing what they did. You know, don't do that, right? And I've had professional guidance on that also. That segues into the last point. Actually, Joe, you brought this up also. Learn to recognize bad advice. Like all of this is good advice. It's all things that, you know, I learned either by training by a professional or pursuing due diligence, right? So you want to recognize bad advice. Many people giving, quote, advice in this space are either dog's first agitators. They'll tell you like, oh, no, 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 don't shoot them. Why? And so often they'll appeal to perfection. Well, it's not 100% chance it's going to put the dog down, but so you shouldn't do it. It's like, look, nothing's a guarantee in life. So it's like, it's effective enough, right? I'd rather go for a 95% chance of putting the dog down than 0, right? So they're going to appeal to perfection. Many of them are incompetent. They'll say, oh, shoot the dog in the foot. Anybody that tells you to do that is a fucking imbecile, period. You aim, if you're going to use a knife, I would go for the neck. If you're going to use a firearm, I would aim for the chest area, center of body mass. It's interesting, like you get these wild hog targets, and it shows that, you see what I'm showing here? There's a vital area, the hog, right? So this is the thorax, it's the chest area, right? Because it's a big target and it's a vital area. So you're much more likely.
Isn't it kind of like right above the legs or something?
Well, you know what I do when I shoot hogs? Actually, I aim like this area here is I aim for the armpit.
Yeah,
because
that's what I thought.
I'm broadside.
I'm in the
'cause what that-
self-defense, but if I'm gonna shoot something, I'm gonna make sure to drop.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, some people say go for a headshot, but the thing is,
No, it's too hard to hit him in the head.
well, particularly on something that's moving, right? So,
Yes. Or a bear, you hit it in the skull, all it's gonna do is bounce off. You're gonna just piss it
that's
off.
the other thing too, is that, because the skull is, I mean, take a dog, right? So, its skull is sloped. It's very thick. So unless you hit it, you're right. If you hit it like at an angle, it could just skip right off. So you want to bury around, like, and if you're hog hunting, and this is what I would do is, part of my due diligence for that is I even own some of these targets, and I'll take them to the range. So I find, if you shoot them in the armpit, like broadside, they just drop. Now, the thing is, self-defense guns like handguns have way less power than, say, like a 308 or a 243 Winchester, but the same kind of principle applies though. So that's what I would do, provided it's what you can do. So like I said, going back to this, maybe I'll publish this blog and post a link in the description, but this is my advice, and most of it's more general advice than, exactly what to do. Because like I said, there's particularly in the 7, like we'll close it out, there's a lot of bad advice in this space, and be wary, particularly from people who have a conflict of interest, because people are going to give you advice, but they're going to advise you to do something that doesn't really injure the dog, because their priority is the dog's health and safety, not yours. So you don't want somebody like that, quote, giving you advice. And also many of those people, when I talk about some of this other stuff, I guess I'm appealing to authority. I'm not going to take advice on killing something from somebody that's never killed anything. Right? Their opinion is meaningless to me. So you have that also. You have the incompetent types also. So all this stuff is worth continuing. I know that was a really good discussion we have, and I always think of some of these things after the fact, but I want to sort of do a post-mortem on that. And these are my ideas, but I said, don't even take my word for it. Go find out, go take a self-defense class taught by a professional and follow their advice. And they're going to tell you to do pretty much what most of the stuff, because typically your self-defense classes involve using force against a fellow human being. We're contemplating dogs here. So there's probably might be a little bit different, but a lot of the same principles apply. So any thoughts on this? I think, where are we with the time? We are at Holy crap, we're at almost 2.5 hours. Were there any thoughts on this before I wrap it up?
Yeah, it's
No,
all really relevant. You just got to protect yourself. Don't be stupid.
Yep. Yeah, nobody should, and nobody should submit to a dog attack. Even if it's a non-fatal attack. Let me tell you something. Your arm is worth more than the life of every dog on earth combined, as far as I'm concerned. So you need to keep that front and center also.
Well, the other thing, not to extend this any further, but do you understand to get a rabies shot, you have to get multiple tetanus shots and other shots, which
Yep.
are around the wound. But what people need to understand is that the rabies shot has to go in where the bite is to administer the medication. So you've got an open, painful wound with the sores and blood and pus gushing and all kinds of nerve endings gone, and it's the synapses are going nuts, and you got to stick a needle in that thing. Oh,
Well,
hell no.
the rabies prophylaxis is, it's a very
Oh,
painful, well, it's not just one shot, it's a whole series of
it's
shots.
multiple.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
I forget the exact prophylaxis, but well, they give you a vaccination, and you're right. I believe they do give it at or near the wound site, but you also have to get multiple shots of what they call immunoglobulin. And what it is it's actually, because it's a serum really extracted from, I believe it's other humans. It might be from animals that have been vaccinated, because they want to get, the problem is like they give you the rabies shot to kind of get your immune system, get the ball rolling on it. But they give you that immunoglobulin serum in a series of shots. That's the actual like antibody, or like antiviral serum. And the whole process, it's very painful, it's very expensive. But rabies is nothing to mess around with. Like, yeah, if you get bit by really any animal, unless you have proof of vaccination, you want to go through the procedure, because if rabies is untreated, it's 100% fatal. You, like, as soon as you show symptoms, you're dead. You die. So, and usually there's a latency. So probably, yeah, if you don't have proof of rabies, you probably want to go on the, again, I'm not giving medical advice, just sharing information, but you want to go on the the procedure, because it is not something you want to mess around with. But it's worse than Ebola. I mean, it's bad stuff. And the other thing that's interesting too is, 99% of rabies vectors to humans worldwide. We don't really have a lot in the U.S. yet, but 99% of them are from dog bites.
Are from dog bites.
From dog
But
bites.
squirrels, remember, squirrels were biting people. Do you know how many videos I see where people just handing squirrels nuts? I randomly just hand squirrels pieces of bread in the park and peanuts and stuff, and they don't seem very vicious. They seem
Yeah.
pretty kind of pleasant.
Well, you can tell too, as you can, the rabies victim, it's possible that they're infected and they're not showing symptoms, but it's just not something you want to mess around with. So if you're bit or scratched by any strange animal, you want to go through the procedure. It's not something you mess around with. So anyways, folks, I think I'm going to wrap it up. Like I said, we're at 2.5 hours. So I think we lost Sheepie. She's like, no, please. Please, no more. I can't take it. This is a really good session. We covered a lot of really good material today. So, all right, thanks for joining. And like I said, this is Animal on Control. As always, people first. All right, thanks,
Take care,
guys.
guys.
Catch you later. Be talking to you. All right, bye.
Thank
All right,
you.
bye-bye.
You take care. Bye bye.